Hey everyone, welcome to Get Life 333. My name is Jackie. This is going to be for Aquarius rising signs or ascendants. Those are interchangeable terms. So this reading is meant to be a general snapshot of the overall situation in your past life compared to the overall situation, more of a core perspective in this life. And this is, again, going to be according to your rising sign. So if you're not sure what your rising sign is, just Google free charts. There are so many of them these days. And all you have to really know besides your date of birth really is the time and location of your birth. But if you don't know the exact time, just plug in 12 a.m. as a default time. You'll still be able to get a good deal of information doing it that way. So when we're talking about past life readings, it really does require a full birth chart analysis to get the full picture, but we can gain a lot of information by looking at the sign that precedes our rising sign. Okay, so rising signs, there's so much to talk about. So if you'd like me to do a more in-depth video on rising sign and moon sign and characteristics and struggles that they have along with the tarot, those are fun reads. Leave a message in the comments below. That would be a lot of fun. But let's get to this. So we're going to discuss where you are, where you've been, right, in your past life, where you are now, and we'll pull a couple of oracle cards as advice of lessons on lessons that you need to focus on in this lifetime, okay? So Aquarius risings, so preceding this life, you were living a very Capricorn-dominated life. Okay, and in this life, Aquarius rising, you've had enough of that restricted living. All right, you're ready to be unique and experience life from a whole new perspective. So as a past life Capricorn dominant, okay, you had a very feet on the ground, eye on the prize kind of thing, You were very realistic with a grounded approach to your life. You knew how to do things, you knew how to get things done. Right? Naturally, you really weren't into anything that seemed to you to be very frivolous, right? You weren't really concerned about things that weren't worthwhile to you, and that included your own life. Okay, you just wanted to do something that was worthwhile. It mattered a lot to you to feel useful and effective in the world. You really needed that in order to feel satisfied. And you had this very strong recognition, this desire for recognition, right, in a more worldly way. You wanted people to pay attention to you. You wanted, you worried about what people thought in your past life, right? And in your past life, you were pretty lonely, although you rarely ever showed it, right? You were probably even a little reserved, I guess, and standoffish. And this is generally because you valued all things that were very practical. And you really never wore your emotions on your sleeves. Unless you had, during that life, a very colorful moon sign, maybe one that was very, deep water sign or something like that for your moon. But otherwise, very practical, very kind of standoffish, but absolutely resourceful. Very resourceful. And to others in your past life, you might have even come off as being very unimaginative, but you were actually very creative when it came to the material world, right? Capricorns are very, very capable people with a very strong sense of tradition and responsibility, primarily for family, right? In your past life, you were very concerned about your people, your tribe, right? And making sure that everybody had, and not in a Cancer loving way, but in a very practically driven way, right? But additionally, you were very dry pan funny in this past life. Many Capricorns have mastered the art of making people laugh. Guys, in full disclosure, Ray Romano, the comedian from Everybody Loves Raymond, he's my brother-in-law, and he is he's a Capricorn Sag cusp, but he has a Capricorn rising, so he has a lot of Capricorn in him, and this is just him, you know, very great sense of humor with like very deadpan. Excellent at keeping a straight face, can be pretty sarcastic. So this is how you guys were in your past life. Also, in your past life, you really were not very into taking too many risks, right? You like the tried and true method, right? It doesn't mean that you guys were boring necessarily, but you really valued hard work, you know, nose to the ground, like let's get it done, right? And people would turn to you when they had to get very practical things done. You had very practical advice. You were very organized, right? You really were people of your word, right? And this is what you were in this past life. So now coming into this life now, okay, as an Aquarius ascendant, nothing conventional or traditional will do for you. Right? As because you've grown out of that Capricorn, you really want to evolve beyond that. So you have to be different. Your individuality is painted on you like a big ass sign, and you can't hide it even when you try. So you're moving out of that life that dictated conventionality, right, with rules and boundaries, and you're ready to just like give back to the world and fly free. You know, it's like free, beautiful spirits. You guys are. So you're very unique, very original, right? And you really don't want to let us forget that. People very often love to turn to you guys for advice on emotional matters because you've grown out of that Capricorn mindset of just practical, and you're really swimming in the emotional waters now more in this life. Although you have this, obviously, this very strong air element, so you're very good with your words. When people come to you for advice, you can tap into the emotion, but you're so beautiful at articulating it in a way that people understand and feel understood, right? You're very poison savvy, and you're also very curious and very learned, I guess you want to say, in the sciences and metaphysics. So a lot of you are probably, well, you're here, so you're into tarot, but you're probably very into astrology as well. You know, anything that advances the human race holds a lot of appeal. So your parameters in this lifetime have opened up from being more micro-focused on the family to that more of the world, right? And also, Aquarius, in this life, it's very hard to shock you. You have seemingly seen it all. You do love shocking others, though. Sometimes you could be very provocative, if not, irreverent. You can be. But you are very likable, super friendly. Your personality quirks generally go over really well with other people. And you really, you like to give people this sense of freedom and acceptance in how you view them. You know, just as a rule, people from all walks of life for you are very equal, and that's very different from a Capricorn. You know, Capricorn finds their tribe, their people, and they stick to it. I'm not saying that they're necessarily judgmental. They just frequently don't bother taking the time out to give people outside of their arena too much thought. Outside of just worrying what everybody thinks about them, they do worry about that, whereas you guys really don't worry as much, right? You just don't. And in that way, you can be kind of cool and a little detached, if that makes sense. Yeah, you kind of have this very detached curiosity about all that goes on around you. All that appeals to you, and that's not very Capricorn, right? So this is part of your soul evolution in this life. You do tend to be a little standoffish just because of this detached curiosity, because you're always thinking about everything, but people do perceive you as being very much like a humanitarian, right? And very kind and very original, independent thinkers. Frequently referred to as a little different or special, or at least you felt like that throughout most of your life. And your ability to observe and deduce things from even minimal information is nothing less of uncanny, right, to most people. So you guys are quirky, and you know, you might dress slightly offbeat, not enough to make you stand out like a sore thumb or anything, but just enough to really express your originality, you know? And, you know, so you're very open, and people do see you as this, which is very surprising when this stubborn streak shows up in you, okay? Because you guys are a fixed sign, a fixed air sign, right? So, you know, with this fixed air, you know, you're very individual when you react to new situations. So you can be a little resistant to change, right? Which seems to contradict that progressive nature you have. And this is very indicative of a leftover element of your Capricorn former life, right? This distinct inflexibility with you guys, right, that you sometimes have. And you have a tendency to want to force your opinions on others. And that's, again, that's a leftover element, right? And you can evolve out of that as you progress in your soul's journey, right? And you're pretty attracted to people, particularly in your partnership sector, who are very, very self-confident, okay? So that's a snapshot for you. So let's pull a couple of oracles speaking to and getting some advice on some lessons that maybe your soul needs to understand in this lifetime, you know? Let's see what we have. Let's pull two. Hopefully you guys could see this. Time for nap and deep knowing. Okay. Okay, so let's start with deep knowing. Okay. This fits, okay? Because in this life, you went from a life of being a Capricorn, very sort of like nose to the grindstone, not really, not as much into like the metaphysical world as maybe some of the other signs. Not saying that Capricorn isn't interested in that. It's just that as an Aquarius rising, you really have a very passionate view about these things. So very strong intuition is being developed in this lifetime. So intuition, you know, it's the faculty that allows you to enter into a dialogue with spirit and consciousness that you're a part of, that we can't see with the naked eye, right? This is something that you're evolving throughout this life. It's almost confusing to you that people are taught to ignore this natural capacity to navigate their journey, to access their inner guidance. You actually don't get that in people. So you know that you have this ability to read between the lines, right? And find all the truth that was missing when the story was told, right? So this deep unknowing allows you to open up, right, to the door, I don't know, to the wisdom, to the greater consciousness of wisdom that's far greater than what's available in the limitation of the human experience. So you guys are going to be really just learning this in your life, right? You know, that you've been given information that might make no sense whatsoever to the logical mind or the senses, but is 100% correct and true, and you see it, right? You understand in this life, and you're evolving to a very deep place of knowing that the trick is to listen and then act accordingly. Yeah. And you're going to be receiving messages in this life from very unusual sources, right? And as far as your relationships with this deep knowing, there are going to be occasions when you just know deep in your heart and soul that a person is going to play a really meaningful role in your life. You sense it straight out of the gate. You're very, very perceptive. So someone crosses your path and suddenly, out of the blue, you're connected on this impossible to describe level. You just feel it, right? And that feeling marks a moment in time that's etched into your soul that just moves you, right? This person, so you understand attachments on a very deep soul level. Right, so you understand that when two hearts are calling to each other, it begins this soul-shifting process, right? And this is also, a sign that your intuition about the person that you care about is correct, right? So you know that you have to trust your heart to lead you in this life. You understand that. See, because in a Capricorn life, it really wasn't like that in relationship. The Capricorn relationships, for the most part, tend to make sense on a lot of levels, not just the heart level. But for you, as an Aquarius rising, it has to really speak to you on that heart level. And that's what you're evolving into. And that could very well be something that you've struggled with up until now, you know. But look, you know, this experience in this life, it's a time for you to pay attention to, you know, your hunches throughout your life, and to listen to them, and to learn how to take a risk and act, right? Yeah. Yeah, at the deep level of your intuition, you have this access to just the genius of the collective, right? I'm sorry if my camera's shaking. Just noticing, I don't know why. It's so bizarre. I'm sorry. Yeah, so yeah, it's like the energies of all the thinkers and all the creators sort of meet in this hub, and you have access to it in this lifetime. It's really great. But, you know, one thing that you want to be careful of is, you know, you can easily go into empathy overload, and you need to get grounded, where you might need to tune out for a bit, you know, in this life. Because what happens is you transition from a life where you felt things on a far more of a surface level. Not the Capricorns were not deep feelers, okay? But because of this overwhelming practical aspect, there was a certain sense of balance in them. But now, as an Aquarius rising in this life, you could just go in empathy overload, right? Very hypersensitive in this lifetime. You can actually suffer from psychic exhaustion, right? So you need to know yourself and know when you need to just chill out, say no thank you, take some time out for self-love and decompression, right? And you just need to be able to do that, okay? So that's deep knowing, and that's an awesome message and so perfect for you guys. Now let's just check out time for a nap. Oh, so yeah, that makes sense. I'm connecting the dots now. Because, you know, time for a nap necessarily means like rest and rejuvenation, renewal, right? So this is a time to like step away and rest in this life from that. I don't want to say Capricorns are maniacs, but they are true workaholics on this very practical level. And it could, and now coming into this life, because you are focusing so much more on trying to balance that out on a very visceral soul level, that's really exhausting, you know? So you have to learn the lesson in this life that nothing is as important as like rest and detachment and being neutral, right? Which you guys do evolve on this path, absolutely, right? That you're learning, or as you're evolving into your ultimate evolution, is going to be into understanding that the overly busy mind can block you from inner wisdom, and that you're going to need to step back and rejuvenate and rest and get some space in order to get those downloads that are necessary, right? Yeah. And as far as relationships go, you're going to need to understand that not everything is going to happen in your timing. You know, you need to take into account your partner's needs and where they're coming from, their history, their story, you know, what's imprinted them up to this point in their life. And really respect that. You want to really respect that. You know, you have the opportunity in this life to understand more of a balanced approach to anything that speaks to your soul. You know, you're really understanding in this life that you're a human being and not a human doing, right? So you're evolving out of this life from being kind of like a workaholic, right? To this space where, as you evolve, you're going to understand the need to compromise. Now, this is also worth noting that an Aquarius Ascendant who is not evolved can still suffer from everything that they experienced in their past life, but in a very subconscious, plaguing, poking at you way, worrying, maybe I'm not doing enough. In this place of conflict of, you know, always trying to control everything. And this is going to be for the unevolved Aquarius Ascendant. Okay, so these are going to be lessons that you ultimately need to learn. You know, you don't want to let your ego keep going full speed so that your body and your spirit like can't meet up. Okay, so it's about understanding this balance, and hopefully you guys will now think about sticking points in your life. Now that we discussed things that you experienced in your past Capricorn life, maybe now you'll have a little perspective on why certain things poke at you that you feel like are almost uncharacteristic of you. And these are typically things left over from our past life. So Aquarius rising, that's what I have for you. I hope you enjoyed this spread. Thank you so much for spending some time with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.